rename their name with the original name. Kindly rename your name with the original name so that we can identify you properly. Second one, keep your audio and video off. Next is don't share your screen during the webinar. Mute your mic. If you don't mute your mic, please unmute it by yourself. Next, during the registration process, many questions has been sent to the honorable speaker. So that questions will be asked on the priority basis. Questions may be raised through chat box during the question and answer session only. Please do not write any greetings, salutations, and any introductory part of yourself, which will disturb the webinar. At the end of the webinar, please fill the feedback form and submit the same. Unless and until if you do not fill the feedback form, you will not get the e-certificate. It should be noted that certificate for participants will be received within 4 to 5 days, and all the information and spellings which you have been sent in our Google registration sheet, that would not be entertained, like it will not be changed once you have all written in the feedback list. So now I request our Honorable Principal, Dr. Mrs. Madhura Kalamkar ma'am, to welcome all the dignitaries and introduction of today's guest speaker. Over to you, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, your voice is not audible, ma'am. It's mute. Ma'am, kindly unmute it. Mic is mute.
Ma'am needs to join her audio.
Please, host, unmute.
Ma'am is not on mute. Ma'am has to join her audio.
Okay. Ma'am, kindly join your audio. My screen is shut off. Ma'am, join your audio so then it will be visible for everyone.
She should unmute. She's
Yeah.
muted. She's muted.
She has muted. Ma'am, kindly unmute yourself.
Double click on the.
Greta, ma'am. Kindly unmute the ma'am.
On unmute, she has to join her audio.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah. Now you are
Yes,
audible.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, all. Yeah, myself, Dr. Mrs. Madhura Kalamkar, in charge principal of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti College of Law. Extremely honored today to welcome you all on the occasion of interdisciplinary webinar organized by Gender Equity Cell of HVPS College of Law. Here I would like to welcome our Honorable Secretary of HVPS, Dr. Rajendra Singh sir, our Director, Mrs. Usha Mukundan Madam, our Principal of RJ College, and also all the principals, teachers, advocates, and students. HVPS College of Law is a dream of our Honorable Secretary, Dr. Rajendra Singh sir. Then late Shri Nandakishore Singh Jairamji, who was our founder of our Samiti and was instrumental in bringing his dream into the reality on the auspicious day of Shri Krishna Janmashtami, 15th August 1938. The journey thus began with the primary school, then secondary high school, and after the Ramranjan Junjunwala College. After that, Samiti decided to provide the society with an institution which will spread the awareness regarding the rights and duties and imparting the legal education and respect for rule of law and responsibilities towards society. So HVPS accomplished with the establishment of HVPS College of Law in 2017. Our college is affiliated to University of Mumbai and Bar Council of India. So our college priority focus is making our students a good human being and also a successful professionals. Even students are doing great in our academics, curriculum, and extracurricular activities. And I'm sure that all our students will definitely reach to the peak of success. Today we have with us our eminent guest speaker for the day, Dr. Vibhuti Patel Madam. She was the former director of PGSR and head of the Department of Economics, SNDT Women's University Mumbai, and she was also a former professor Advanced Center of Women Studies School for Development Studies, TIS, Mumbai. Professor Vibhuti Patel Madam is a PhD in economics from University of Mumbai. She was awarded visiting fellowship to the London School of Economics and Political Science from Association of Commonwealth Universities, UK in 1992-93. She has authored and co-authored 12 books. She has also authored and co-authored 34 researches, monographs, and reports. Her research papers, comments, commentaries, and reviews have been published in the nation as well as international academic journals. She received many awards. Citation award from Mahila Sangha Association, citation from Men's Against Violence and Abuse, MAVA, award for social sector work from Mayor of Mumbai, Mumbai Municipal Corporation, Outstanding Citizenship Award by Women Political Forum on Maharashtra Sri Mukti Din, 3rd January 2004. Then she also received award from Women Achievers from Young Environmentalist Program Trust, Mumbai on 7th March 2011. She also received award from Social Work from Vanita Samaj, Mumbai. Award from Postdoctoral Fellowship from Association of Commonwealth University that enabled her to work as a visiting faculty at the Development Studies Institute, the London School of Political Science during 1992-93. She is also the member on various editorial board like the International Journal of Economics, Education and Development, TIJEED, Switzerland, Bharatiya Samajik Chintan, Indian Academy of Social Science, Allahabad, Pragati, a Journal of Indian Economy, Delhi, Journal Press India, Social Modernity, Asian Journals of Social Science, Ranchi. So now I will request Vibhuti ma'am to enlighten us with your words of wisdoms on today's topic, gender dimensions of the COVID-12 pandemic. Madam, we can't hear you.
The mic is weak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, friends, all the teachers and students. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Madhura Kalamkar, Dr. Usha Mukundan, Dr. Rajendra Singh, and and the teachers of Gender Equity Cell of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti's College of Law, and all the participants who have come in the afternoon, which is, I think in today's time, it's quite a challenge. But I would like to first of all, today we are going to speak on uh, impact of COVID on women and the gender implications of COVID-19. Uh, and my presentation is on gender dimensions of COVID-19 pandemic uh, on women. All of us now know very well that in last 4 months, our life has changed greatly and the new normal has set in. We have experienced 4 phases of lockdown, and now we are in the third phase of partial unlock. Not some, all states have not unlocked. Today, the lockdown is extended in Maharashtra, this thing. And we also have a whole long history of combating epidemics and pandemics. Epidemic of smallpox, people of my generation would know what epidemic of smallpox created, or the epidemic of plague, tuberculosis. And the state has, it was the public health system which acted all these times over the last 200 years. It has greatly impacted economy, society, and all the governance structures, whether it's a criminal justice system or public health or infrastructure facilities like a transport is not available. And it has also created a big fiscal deficit in the state governments as well as the economy. And it's not only in our country, all the countries in the world have been affected by that. What we see is also a massive staff shortage in the public health sector, because more than 50% of the posts were not filled up due to zero budget policy adopted after new economic policy. Private sector decided to close down all the facilities, whether it was a nursing home or hospitals or clinics. And when they started also, like under the unlock period, they are charging whoop. Today's, if you see today's front page news in Mumbai Mirror, which says that the state government has decided that minimum 4,000 per day should be charged. But people have been running from one private facility to the other, and they are not, nobody is ready to admit them for 4,000 per day, while the public facilities are so short in supply. And it is in this context that gender differential impact has a very important significance, because whatever inequalities are existing in our society, that gets magnified at the time of crisis, whether it's a man-made disaster or a natural disaster or a pandemic. And we see both adaptability to the corrupt forces. Like it's a very in today's, under the cloak of lockdown, we see that the new license arbitrage has come up, and rent-seeking behavior, like people charging extra, like just for 2-line certificate for a medical fitness, they would charge, private doctors would charge, say, 2,500 rupees, or everywhere you are demanding, every hospital if you go, they are told that there is, women are pregnant, they are in labor, they are screaming, and they when they want the hospital admission, beds are empty inside the hospital, but the gatekeepers would not allow them in under one excuse or the other, and they said that show us that you are COVID free. And at the same time, some tout will come and they said, are you giving 2 lakh rupees? Then I'm ready to give you bed. And this is happening at a generalized level, so much so that now, for the first time, even those who were advocates of private sector and votaries of neoliberalism and market should govern everything, they have also started saying that no, we need to strengthen the public health system. That's very important. And the women's movement from the very beginning has been demanding universalization of public health. Now, at the end of the June, government also gave a relief package, and its utility for women in informal sector and focus areas for the strategies that respond to rebuild the lives and livelihoods of women. We should see that in what context and in what way is this relief package going to be helpful to women, because 20 lakh crores have been allocated for rejuvenation of medium, small, and micro industries. Migrant workers' plight has to be this thing. And whenever we talk about migrant workers, we only talk about only male migrant worker. Only when you see the pictures and videos where you see even the young 15-year-old domestic worker, or a 20-year-old woman with kids, or a pregnant woman in her early 20s walking on the road, we saw during the reverse migration process that was happening. and also creation of agriculture infrastructure. We know that majority of working women are in the agriculture sector in our country. All along, we are always saying that urbanization is a solution. Industrial growth is the only contributor to the national income. For the first time, we are saying that under the lockdown, when the industrial growth was zero, we had 11% agrarian growth because we had a bumper Rabi harvest, and now we are Kharif harvest is also going to be. There are people are very optimistic about the monsoon harvest. And also the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan also talked about investment in coal mining and defense manufacture. I don't know how it is related to COVID. And that's why many economists are not even calling it a relief package. They call it economic package, that it is not for the relief of the COVID, to relief measure for challenging the COVID. It's a partially maybe yes, but not. But the most important element in the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan is the MG Narega. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Scheme that we have, that, and many states have started skill mapping, and after short-term courses of employment to run the daycare centers or community kitchens or elderly care centers or shelter homes or maintenance and management of quarantine centers, public health centers, food processing, because we have a massive supply currently of grains, fruits and vegetables, horticulture, poultry, cottage industry, craft-based industry. So there are so many ideas which different state governments are trying to implement. But at the same time, what we see is that women are treated differentially. On paper, MG Narega rates are 370 per day, but what actual wages that people are getting is 230 for men and 120 for women. We are seeing that even students and youth and who are postgraduate, who were teachers, who were working for the various online IT industry, or those who were running Ola and Uber, those who were working for Swiggy, Amazon, all of them have now, when they have gone back to the village, they have joined MG Narega, so much so that the whole year's budget has been over in 3 months' time. So that is the level of demand that you have. The report of Kerala, where the highly educated boys, men have also joined MG Narega, and they are highly qualified. Even engineers have joined MG Narega because there is no other alternative of livelihood or survival in the context of lockdown. Another scheme that came up is the Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Yojana, and also which also talks about the special focus on the rural and urban poor, and especially the migrant population. And public health expenditure, there has been demand by the UN, by the World Health Organization, and by the health movement in India, which is like spearheaded by Medico Friends Circle or People's Health Movement or Doctors Without Borders. They are demanding minimum 6% of GDP should be allocated to public health. Currently, India's budgetary allocation is less than 2%. But still, the Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana has also declared 8,100 crore stimulus package for the frontline workers. Now, here comes the catch. Who is the frontline workers? Only specialists and the super specialists are frontline workers who should be given all these facilities. And I would show that how the frontline workers, the majority of them are women. Okay. The gender differential impact of coronavirus is because of this whole demand of social distancing. First of all, the social distancing is a highly objectionable term because we have a very painful legacy of caste system. Caste system always demanded social distancing from Avarna or from the low Shudra and Atishudra. So there is a tremendous uproar by the human rights organization against the use of term social distancing. And even the WHO, World Health Organization, has also came out after 1 month of lockdown. It also came out with a poster saying that please use the term physical distancing or body distancing. Globally also there is a anger against this social distancing as it is used because we also globally also we have a very painful history of 500 years of slavery and apartheid. Apartheid was not there only in South Africa, okay, it was there in operation in most of the countries. The colorism was always there. So this so it's very important that we use the correct terminology, which would be body distancing or physical distancing. Now, according to the statement of the UN Women, which was issued immediately after the lockdown in our country. But globally, there were lockdowns right from January, because China had coronavirus at a peak in December. The first case of coronavirus in India came to Kerala, where students from China, universities in China started coming back. So on the 20th March, UN Women, the Women's Wing of the United Nations, decided to launch a website titled In Focus, Gender Equality Matters in COVID-19 Response. And I quote, "The COVID-19 pandemic is not just a health issue, it is a profound shock to our societies and economies, and women are at the heart of care and response efforts underway. As frontline responders, health professionals, community volunteers, transport and logistic managers, scientists, and more, women are making critical contribution to address the outbreak every day. Majority of caregivers at home and in our community are also women. And additionally, they are at the increased risk of infection, loss of livelihood, and existing trend points to less access to sexual and reproductive health and rise in domestic violence during the crisis." Now, this statement is based on whatever input or the feedback or the rapid assessment surveys which were done during lockdown in 182 countries. It was crystallized in this statement, and I think we will examine one after another with the evidences of last 4 months in our country. Now, gendered experiences of COVID-19 are marked by intersection of inequalities in the labor market, okay, because everyone in the labor market doesn't get treated equally. If you are a man, you have a different kind of opportunities than you are a woman. If you know English, then you get better opportunity than this. If you are techno savvy, you can get a better opportunities in current context of 21st century knowledge economy. Intra-household power relations during stay at home, because when a woman is at home, everyone continuously demands. There is a gender-based division of labor in the family. Lockdown orders in the matters concerning care, stress, and domestic violence that we have seen. The domestic violence has escalated manyfold. There are countries where 10 times more cases have come up. In our own country, National Commission for Women has received over 1 lakh calls in last 120 days about variety of emotional, physical, and psychological violence that women have faced, which in the normal sense, the normal circumstances, they could avoid by going away from the tormentor. But in the lockdown, you are caged, you are in the proximity of a tormentor. Working from home along with housework is also very difficult, because the gendered experiences of the household responsibilities, like if you are a woman and working from home, it's a very different ballgame than if your men are working from home. If men are working from home, they can easily say, don't disturb me, don't disturb. While in women's case, right from cooking, cleaning, childcare, examining, supervising the online education of children, elderly care, and if somebody is ill in the family, along with that, she has to do her office work. Domestic violence, sexual violence, child sexual abuse in the camps and shelter homes, and mental health issues, they have expounded multifold. Personal care and frontline healthcare services to the family members, and also government interventions for food security. I think that also is very important, to what extent food is available to you. And currently we have seen that even people who were lower middle class, people who were doing different professions, they are also depending on the food packets given by the NGOs and the community organizations and the local self-government bodies. Shelter for homeless migrant workers, because in crores of homeless, now you can't even say lakhs, okay, we have 3 crore migrant workers, and most of them became homeless. Those who were in the cities, they became homeless mainly because they could not pay the rent to the landlords. Testing for coronavirus and other social policies are also, I think, because there also it is not so easy to get tested, because 4,500, who has most of the people, they can't afford 45, and 4,500 is the legal rate. Okay, whatever is asked in the black market is even more. Social protection responses to COVID-19, where you have lost your income, you have lost your rented home, you have lost your admission of your school because of your children. Now, what kind of social protection people have? That is also very important, and especially those women who are managing their house, like single women or women-headed households. No? Impact on of the shift in the priorities of public health services. The moment we had coronavirus, all other services, non-corona services stopped. whether it was a reproductive healthcare services or the services to the heart patient, services to the diabetic patient, all of them, because the impact or the concentration was on COVID cases. Now, what happened to those pregnant women? What happened to the women who are in labor? We have seen the photographs and testimonies in the newspapers. So differential impact of COVID-19 infection and also the resultant mortality and morbidity rate, I think we need to understand that it has a differential impact by gender, caste, ethnicity, and class. Now, data from the rapid assessment surveys also shows that in countries, women are more, in most of the countries, women are more likely to see increases in both unpaid domestic work as well as unpaid care work. Okay, domestic work, cooking, cleaning, and looking after children. Unpaid care work in terms of care of the elderly, care of the children, and care of the ill people. In addition, they are also more likely than men to say they are in charge of performing all three activities at the same time: unpaid childcare, unpaid adult care, and unpaid domestic work. On the contrary, men tend to concentrate on fewer tasks, for example, shopping for the household or playing with the children. This is based on the rapid assessment survey done by the United Nations UN Women on 182 countries of the impact of COVID-19 over 4 months from January to April end. Now, when it comes to frontline healthcare workers, we have 9 lakh official public healthcare workers. Okay, women as healthcare providers make up to 70% of the frontline healthcare workforce as doctors, nurses, ayabais, sanitation workers, Anganwadi workers, ASHA workers, and now we can also add government school teachers, because they are the ones who are distributing PDS grains to the community. They are also frontline workers. If we add them, then you can see the enormity of the frontline workforce that we have. None of them are and you can also see in the pictures, they don't have a personal protection equipment except for masks. They don't have, they are not given anything. So they are at the greater risk of infection. In fact, the study by the All India Safai Karmachari Union has shown that the massive death rate of women sanitary workers has taken place during the COVID-19. Now, women who are in the formal sector, women like your teachers and me and all, we were in the formal sector, we get the protection of labor laws. But these women are also facing increased domestic care burden in the wake of children and earning members being confined to home. They are there 24 hours a day. And so many women have even cut their hair. They have become clean shaven just to reduce the time on spent on the hair care. So because they are so much busy with the cooking and making fresh food, whether it is the snacks or food 4 times a day, because now even outside nothing ready-made is available. You have to do everything at home. Plus, you don't have a domestic help. So you are doing this thing. Children are studying from home. There is online education. Middle and upper class educated women employed who are working from home, as they have information technology enabled communication channel, they are also juggling. They are also multitasking, juggling with housework, childcare, homeschooling, and office work without any support of domestic help. But still, I don't think that we have any reason to cry. In any case, we constitute only 6% of the workforce, which is a better paid and which has economic security. Media has also given a lot of coverage on this middle class educated families, where it talks about increased bonding, interpersonal dialogue, people making their men, some progressive men sharing housework in terms of cooking, cleaning, childcare, supervision of homework, playing with the children. Young men and women are involved in community service in a big way, taking care of lonely elderly on phone, visiting them by maintaining physical distance. People are learning new skills, online new skills, joining e-learning courses, pursuing their hobbies, webinars, attending webinars, talks, panel discussions on Zoom and WebEx and several platforms that have emerged. They are also making phone calls for a long conversation with their friends and ex-colleagues and old neighbors whom they had not even contacted in years. and also relatives with whom they had lost touch for many, many years. And these are unprecedented people-to-people support and immediate intervention in the crisis management. So many testimonies are written about how people are donating in cash. There are online money transfer they are making. They are giving support in kind. Free services are given thanks to COVID communication enabled by quick communication enabled by social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Now we come to the large majority of women who are in the informal sector of the economy. Most of the workforce in India in the unorganized sector, and I quote International Labour Organization's data of 2017, the unorganized sector workers plus informal workers in the organized sector has remained relatively stable at around 92%. Within the overall category of informal sector, the largest group is own account workers. So the people who are selling pav vada, or people who run the tea stall or a dhaba or selling vegetables or fruits, they are own account workers, one third of them, one third of the total informal workforce, followed by informal employees in informal sectors, like whether you go to Dharavi or Jogeshwari or any other industrial clusters, you would see most of them would be working either as a contract workers or a casual workers or a daily workers. They don't get any protection of the 48 labor laws that India got in after 200 years of struggle by the trade union movement. And also we have a 18% of the person, 17.9, that is a contributing to the family workers. That means they are the unpaid if family is a household business or household work, all members of the family contribute, but they are not listed as a worker. This informalization has been more pronounced in case of women workers, because in India, 94% of women are employed in unorganized sector, and they are involved in work which lacks dignity of labor, social security, and decent and timely wages, and in some cases even the right to be called worker, because we have a jodi system, whether it is a construction industry or sugarcane industry, you have a jodi, a one man and one woman. So the man is considered as a worker, he is listed as an official worker, while woman is not. And when you are not listed as an official worker, all the protections, whether it is a provident fund or health benefits or maternity benefits or the social security, social protection, which the government has come up, you are not benefiting from that. Now, this pandemic has a dire implication for vulnerable populations, even among women. One is a women-headed household. The households which are run by widow, deserted, single, and divorced women. People with disability, they suffered a lot. Pregnant women, because the healthcare services were not available. Women were delivering babies in the field, on the road, in the neighbor, with the help of neighbors and all. Homeless people and the lonely elderly, they also suffered. And socially stigmatized transgender community and the sex workers, because even the philanthropic organizations, social work organizations, the highly prestigious NGOs, they refuse to send food or food packets or dry ration to transgender community and sex workers. Finally, it was the social work institutions like Tata Institute of Social Sciences, College of Social Work, Nirmala Niketan, and volunteers of Ghar Bachao, Ghar Banao, or other NGOs, Committee for Social Justice. They are the ones who pitched in. In Bombay, I'm talking about, but I think everywhere the scenario is the same. Prisoners and inmates, we also read the report that in Yerawada jail in Pune, one third of the prisoners are COVID positive. Okay, so they are living in the overcrowded shelter homes and also prisons and makeshift tents. They are more exposed to, and that's why we see that currently all those migrant workers who were in the shelter homes and they have gone back to the village. So now we have a spread of coronavirus even in the tier 2 cities, in the peri-urban places, and in the villages. So women who are daily wage laborers, head loaders, construction workers, street vendors, domestic workers, security guards, small-scale manufacturing workers in the recycling, scrap, garment industries, or women in a beauty parlor, they have suffered a loss due to loss of employment and also confinement for nearly 4 months. Now, challenges for the migrant workers have been many, as we all have read in the newspapers and videos and WhatsApp messages that we have got and the pictures that we saw. One thing that has happened this time is there has been responsible media coverage, whether it is the English media or the regional language media. There has been dialogue between elected representatives with people, shelter homes with utmost care of for hygiene. I think that is the demand, and NGOs are constantly filing public interest litigation, demanding better quality of in the shelter home. And so many corporate houses have also come up, because you need a clean water, and you need a beds. The beds has to be placed at a 1.5 meter distance, and you also need medical care. Universalization of PDS without conditionality of eligibility criteria for identification and domicile. More than 7 states have said that you need not show your Aadhaar or or ration card to get the grain. Okay, every hungry person has to be fed. That is the principle. At least 7-8 states have accepted. Jharkhand, Kerala, Maharashtra. We have seen Gujarat also. The list of beneficiaries to be prepared by the collector's office, which is much easier now with the information technology and election card and Aadhaar and all. So it's easy to make a targeted intervention. Water tankers and mobile toilets, I think they are very important, which the NGOs facilitated, and the local self-government also within a 1 month they saw to it that the crisis is addressed. Health posts of the government organizations and private sectors to be made provide healthcare facilities. But I think this is a one thing, partial success has taken place, but lot of health organizations have also invited the attention of the irregularities, and immediately the system responds. Special focus on reproductive and child care. I think most of the governments have not done it, but there is a demand that this should be treated as an essential service. You just can't leave, like you just can't disband vaccination of children, or you can't disband giving tetanus to a woman who is in the 7th month of pregnancy. You can't disband maternity ward. In so many places, maternity wards were converted into a corona ward, no, and women had to deliver babies at home. There were either home deliveries, and lot of massive maternal mortality has taken place, 4 times more maternal mortality, and the child mortality and the neonatal mortality has taken place. Another thing is the creation of helpline. I think that was the one thing which very human rights organization, Childline, maintained by Ministry of Women and Child Development, and women's organizations, they created, and the social work institutions also came up with the counseling services for children, for survivor of violence, and those who face distress due to social distancing. Repatriation to the rural homes, I think that was another very major challenge that we fought. Certain state governments, Kerala, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, they acted responsibly, and the politicians, elected representatives, ministers were proactively, they were accessible to the people who were suffering and those who were stranded. Payment of all areas to the workers by the employers. The announcements were made, but the employers have not given, and that's what created major human misery for the migrant women and children also, along with the migrant men. As per 2011 census, we have nearly 3 crore women who are migrants. Overall migrants we have 12 crore. The migrant workers, daily wage earners, unorganized sector workers, including the self-employed women and men, have been worst hit due to loss of wages, no money to pay rent of the house, buy daily necessities. They were exposed to hunger, no access to water, resulting in dehydration, malnutrition, infection, and worst of all, police brutality, as most of them tried to go to the native place as they had nothing to survive in the cities, no, because of the market economy did not give them basic survival needs and took away all their livelihood support. In the metropolis, where nearly half of the population lives in the slums, how can they maintain so-called social distance? And that was a major challenge that they faced, because they live in a small, cramped houses. And we saw this kind of pictures in the newspapers and on the television of the reverse migration, where the confusion, chaos, loss of confidence among these people. And you can see even here, whether they are sitting, they are cramped in 80 people are in a truck. Men are sitting at the corner, they can get breeze. Women are in the middle. Okay, and so many of them have now reported that they could not breathe. They felt suffocated. They felt like jumping out of and they also faced massive sexual harassment while traveling. That is now coming out in the counseling by the NGOs. consequences of reverse migration without any infrastructural support in terms of a bus or train in the initial period, which and the barriers which were created due to Nakabandi. And also everywhere the barriers were there. Barriers were there in the gated community, barriers were there in every ward, barriers were there between two cities, barriers were there between two states. In fact, there were bus loads of people who were taken from Delhi to UP, and they were not even allowed to get in. First of all, to get transport for 80 people, social workers have to work for 15 to 20 days. There are so many clearances you need. You need a clearance from magistrate, you need clearance from health practitioner that these people are fit to travel. Okay, you need police clearance. All these clearances, after that, you manage to at least get 80 people in one bus, and that too, they are not allowed. So barriers in the interstate crossover resulting in a dangerous route, because these barriers made the migrant workers to use the dangerous route. Some tried forests, some tried railway tracks, some tried walking at the, hiding themselves in the bushes and walking near the highway, on the highway, and many of them suffered a lot. They met with an accident, and they used bicycle, auto rickshaw, tempo, truck, bus, train, large containers of liquid material, cement mixer, industrial vessel. And what happened, like there are now 8 to 10 reports have come up based on the interviews of these workers, and all these interviews were taken on mobile, because most of these migrant workers have mobile. And they were in touch with the support organizations that were giving them food packets, they were giving them homeopathic medicine, or they were giving them masks and sleepers, because that's what so many volunteers were also giving them sleepers, because they were walking for miles together, 100 mile, 200 mile, and the sleepers were become unusable. So they are the ones who got this data. So hunger and thirst, death due to starvation, dehydration, suffocation due to overcrowding, that was a major thing. When it came to women migrant workers, it was a reproductive health needs. They were pregnant women, who delivered babies on the roadside. They cleaned their own placenta and cleaned the baby. There was nobody to help them. Somewhere they were helped by police, somewhere they were helped by Anganwadi workers. In the villages, they were helped by the Asha workers. Massive maternal deaths took place. Senior citizens, young ones carried them on their back. Children were falling ill. They were carried by their parents. Persons with disability. We also heard the case of a girl who walked from NCR region in Delhi to her native place. She drove for 1,200 kilometers. Robbery, extortion, theft, sexual violence, child sexual abuse. Slowly and gradually, we are getting all these horror stories in the counseling by the Childline, Helpline, and also by the State Commissions for Women and the National Commissions for Women. So many people committed suicide. They were not only poor, even the middle class, though men and women committed suicide because of the loss of job. They could not pay EMI, whatever, they could not pay the rent. Road accidents, train accidents, and also now we are hearing massive trafficking of women and children, which have taken place under lockdown. Earlier, we used to see so many street children at the railway station, or selling things in the railway train, in the trains, or at the bus stop, at the public places. Where have these children gone? They have not gone to their parents' place or to their extended family. So we have seen this kind of a human misery in a big way. But the ray of hope in this question, in this whole mammoth pandemic and the human misery, was a people-to-people solidarity that we saw. And another realization that migrant workers who were earlier treated only as a faceless mass and a burden to the urban economy, anything went wrong with the urban, beautification of Bombay, they would say Dharavi is the ugly spot. No, there were people who would say migrant workers as a burden. Now, for the first time, like there is a realization and there is acceptance by everybody, by the employers, by the citizens, and by the social scientists and academicians like us, that migrant workers are hardworking city makers. They are the ones, if they are not there, then economy of the city will collapse. And currently we saw, in the unlock period, when some thousands of migrant workers have come back, and we have 65,000 units have started in Maharashtra, but they are working at the capacity of 20%, 30%, 40% capacity utilization. They have machine, but they have no workers to use that. So I think it's very important, and so many employers have now studied, whether they are in Bangalore construction giants or industrialists in NCR region or builders in Mumbai. All of them are bringing back, because without these skilled workers and all these migrant workers, because they were doing multitasking, they have a variety of skills. Because those who have interacted, because these are all migrant workers, those who have interacted with them, they know that they know plumber, fitter, turner, electrician, and they pick up so fast. And many of them are educated. And even when they were in the shelter home, they would not sit quiet. They would be constantly working. They volunteered their time for making food for 6,000 people. In Bhiwandi, it was 12,000 people. In Versova, it was 800 people. In Vadala, they were 1,200 people. In Dharavi, there were 6,000 people who had to be fed. All of them, women and men, all of them volunteered for cooking. And this is the solidarity and the kind of dignity of labor. I think whether you are in Maharashtra, you talk about Kashtachi Bhakar. If you are in North India, you would say Pasine ki Kamai. So these are the workers who have a ethos of Pasine ki Kamai. Very, very proud and self-respecting human beings. Now coming to another aspect of gender implication of COVID-19 is the unpaid care work. Because unpaid care work in our country, if you see, even go by the national data, men spend in the rural areas, men spend 32 minutes per day in unpaid care work. Women spend 291 days. Okay, so 7 times more time. In the urban India, men are giving 29 minutes per day for unpaid work, while women are giving 312 minutes for unpaid work. Now, it is very important to acknowledge, because we economists tend to say that anything where there is a no monetary exchange or transaction, we call that economy has stopped. Economy has not stopped. Okay, everyone is cooking, everyone is looking after people. Even in the midst of lockdown, farmers are they are giving vegetables. There is a lot of barter system in so many places. In Bihar, currently barter system has come up. The teachers are teaching. They are not getting salary, but they are teaching the students using one mobile online teaching, and the farmers are giving them grains or giving them vegetables. Okay, so economy is there. Unpaid care work is happening in a big way, but still what we see that the response of the industry, except for 2 industries, Tata Steel and Swiggy, none of them said that we would give the women paid leave if they are under quarantine or their family members are under quarantine, or if they are pregnant. So I think this is also very telling that how do we see because this reproductive work of women is a production of life. Okay, if a woman produce babies now, 20 years down the line, these babies are going to be adult and they are going to contribute to the economy. So that should be the perspective with which we should be seeing the reproductive work of women. And this is the one thing which suffered the most, because women delivered babies on roads and trains and rickshaws and in front of hospitals. They went to 8 hospitals and they were rejected, and went to 4 hospitals and they were rejected. And who came to the rescue? It was the ASHA workers, police women, people on the road, and they are the neighbors who helped them deliver the babies. 24 women delivered babies in a Shramik Express when the unlock happened, okay, in the beginning of July. Denial by the hospitals to admit women in labor, even when the beds were empty, okay, because take an example of Mumbai, 13 hospitals had specially created beds only for women in crisis. But still, the gatekeeper would not allow them in, saying that if we don't know whether you have COVID or not. And these are the women who had miscarriage, who had unsafe deliveries, who had neonatal deaths, who had maternal deaths and maternal morbidity, because if you are in such an unhygienic place, if you are deliver the baby, obviously you are going to get variety of infections. So many women were asked to clean their own placenta and baby. So now the women's movement has demanded urgent need for helplines for pregnant women alone, okay, and no stoppage of vaccination, no stoppage of postnatal care, and also antenatal care. So now, according to the data from Ministry of Health, From 1st April to June 10th, that means in 40 days time, national average of estimated number of pregnant women registered with Ministry of Health and Family Welfare was only 24%. Okay, so only 1/4 of the pregnant women are registered, while among the children it was even less, 17%. Okay, so what happened to the pregnant women? 83% of the newborn babies and 75.95% of the new pregnant women, what happened to them? Okay, where did they deliver the babies? Where are those babies? Are they registered in the birth and death register of the government? Are they vaccinated, these children? Are they given polio vaccine? Are they given MMR vaccine, measles and mumps and triple vaccination? So in cases of this, it is not known if 83% of the estimated childbirths since April have received vaccination or other requirement of the emergency medical care. Country doesn't even know how many of them have survived, how many have died and how many have survived. So this is a major, because Indian statistical system, Indian data gathering agencies are supposed to be very robust, because right from the colonial times we have had, but that has completely collapsed when it comes to the health needs. Now, coming to the women in agrarian sector, we have seen that when the lockdown was declared, India was in the midst of Rabi harvesting season. We got a bumper crop, and the crop was getting wasted, vegetables were getting wasted. We saw so many pictures of farmers just destroying everything because it was getting it was rotting in the field. By 14th of April, government of Maharashtra at least declared, and I think nationally also, government of India declared that farmers can make a direct sell to whatever they have produced to the customers. Okay, they need not go to APMC Mandi, because Mandi, if people gather, then there would be more COVID spread, coronavirus spread. But who had this facility of contact for a direct sell? Only those who had tempo, those who had mobile or smartphone, those who had a contact with the potential customers. Women did not have. So that's the report of Mahila Kisan Mazdoor Sangatna. They have come up with the two very exhaustive reports based on the condition of women farmers, especially who are the women farmers. Women farmers have a half acre of land, 1 acre of land, 2 acre, 5, maximum 5 acres of land. These women could not sell their product because they did not have, neither had a vehicle nor had such smartphones or contacts in the cities. So what we saw was women lost out even as cultivators and farmers. In Maharashtra, when it came, Maharashtra, a major supplier of sugar to not only to India, but even globally. Okay, so 1.31 lakh migrant sugarcane workers, they were allowed to return to their native place. But for that, they needed medical tests. And how could they get medical tests? It was just not possible for them, because civil hospitals and primary health centers were overworked, and they with the corona patients. So what we see is that the gendered impact of COVID-19 for rural India, and I think about which not, because this time the focus was more on the urban India and what was happening in the cities. So I think the work, women were, first of all, women are not registered as workers. If you have a Jodi system, it's only these men who are on the tractor. They are registered as farmers or workers. Women are not. Women get unequal wages. If the man would get 370, women would get 120. Women in India generally eat last, least, and leftover. And that's why the nutritional standards of women suffered a great deal. That happened even globally, because WHO is now saying that everywhere the nutritional standard of women and children has gone down globally. And the reproductive health needs of women were completely neglected. Now coming to tribal women, because in tribal areas, they depend mostly on the collection of minor non-timber forest product and whatever the forest products are there. And we have near 11% of the country's rural population is constituted by tribal this thing. They had done by end of March, when the lockdown was declared, national lockdown was declared, they had already gathered all the forest produce, around 200 were for recognized minor forest produce were collected, whether it was a tendu leaf or a bamboo or mahua or sal or lac or chironji or tamarind or gum or orange, and they could not give it to the buyers because of the lockdown. And now the tribal organizations are asking for tax exemption and no GST, because pharma industries are also their major buyers. No? Now, women as healthcare seekers, because women, they had most of the women who had problem, they depended mainly on the home-based services. First of all, even for man, it was so difficult to get the public health services who would spend on women. So that was the women's health needs were, overall general health needs were also neglected. Now, when it comes to some states came up with a very good practice in terms of, say, Kerala, Maharashtra, Delhi, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, in terms of constantly communicating the messages, because we have seen that the countries where there was a lack of democracy, freedom of press was not there, or where there was an autocratic or dictatorial regime, in the midst of corona lockdown, none of the problems were being discussed in media, or none people, or by the civil society and the elected representatives. There were no dialogue. They were in a denial mode. They were in a cynical way, the way politicians treated the situation. In these states, what we saw, that from the very beginning, whether it was chief ministers or health ministers or elected representatives, they were ready to listen to what was happening at a ground level. So many Zoom meetings were taking place between the municipal commissioner and the corporators and the civil society. First time, like, vilification or criticism of the NGOs stopped, because NGOs were the ones who were at the front line. They were the ones who had no coronaphobia. They were the ones, young boys and girls from IIT or TISS or Nirmala Niketan or all these NGOs were working at a community level, community-based organization, civil society organization. They were there in the bastis, and they were bringing day to day what were the kind of crises that needed to be addressed. So communication, very important. Dialogue between the elected and civil elected representatives and the voter and the community constituency and the government organizations and NGOs, that was very important. Use of information technology, the social media. Okay, there were some incidences of trivialization also, like all those dirty, filthy jokes and PJs that were coming in WhatsApp and all. Barring aside those things and the cyber stalking, cyber crime that was reported, but we saw, by and large, the technology came to the aid of meeting the crisis and also democratizing the information channels. Relief and resources, I think, as the people, it was like a trial and error basis in which it was happening, because nobody was prepared. It happened so suddenly and so enormously. We were used to epidemic. Okay, when we had plague in Surat, it was in Surat alone. Okay, whatever is happening currently, same thing happened in Surat, but transport was not stopped. People, migrant workers from Surat also had the same problem because of the lockdown in Surat, but they could go out. Okay, they went to the native place because buses and trains were going. Pandemic, because it's a generalized, everybody was suffering, so it was very important. The short-term miseries that we face, but they were addressed, and also continuously the new advisories and the appropriate policies were coming up. Reviews were doing, rapid assessment were doing, need mapping was happening in a big way. The women's rights organization are majorly concerned about the delivery of reproductive health services, sanitary kits, menstrual supplies, and menstrual health. Very important. I think one person has even asked about this question, that why it is important. Yes, it's extremely important. And so many NGOs were also doing. BMC gave 1 lakh packets to TISS for distribution. Ensure availability of curfew passes to family members of pregnant women. Family members of pregnant women cannot be beaten up by police. Okay, they have to be taken to the hospital. Balanced diet for pregnant and lactating mothers because of the lockdown. Integrated child development service and the midday meal scheme also completely collapsed. And midday meal was a very important. Once the schools stopped, children stopped getting one hot afternoon meal, which was earlier provided by under the Right to Food Act of our country. Make provision for 90 days of wages to all pregnant women from the 3rd trimester. So after 6 months of pregnancy, if they are there, state should give them. And also lactating women with infants aged less than 6 months. Services of women's helpline, short stay home, child helpline need to be kept fully functional, and it should be kept classified as essential service. Only COVID is not essential service. They are also extremely important essential service. We should make the directory of support services for stranded students, women-headed households, persons with disability and transgender community, what kind of support they get. And also combating increasing child marriages, because one thing that has happened because of the reverse migration. All those young women and like even domestic workers, because in India, labor force definition of labor force is 50 to 59. So 15-year-old girl can also work in the labor market. Okay, so all these girls who have gone back, they are also forced into marriage, and families which are facing economic distress, they see the marriage under lockdown is cheaper because only 8-10 people are invited, so it reduces the marriage cost. Secondly, you have to feed one less mouth, so because there is so much of food scarcity. And the third one is that the question of safety. So these are the three major reasons why which child marriages have increased. In Maharashtra, it is the Sholapur is the region, but all over India, I think child marriages have increased. And government Ministry of Women and Child alone has stopped more than 5,000 child marriages in last 4 months, and the complaints which they have received are more than over 1 lakh. And gender-based violence has also increased. Another very important thing that we need to remember is the role of the women's organization. Here is an organization called Vacha in Mumbai. Their students, their junior college and senior college students, they are doing the need mapping. So I think it's a very important, whatever research methodology we have taught to our students in the class, I think they are applying it in terms of what kind of support system, who needs food, who needs medicine, who needs sanitary pads, so that need mapping of the community they do, and the relief material is not wasted. So interventions of the volunteers of the educational institutions was also very important in last 4 months in terms of relief operations, volunteering for the community kitchen. So many boys and girls have volunteered to do community kitchen work, their counseling work, networking with the supply chain. It's very important that grocers and ration shop owners, they would otherwise cheat, while these students and youth, they would see to it that whatever is the government rate is given, there is no siphoning of supply and all. They also coordinated with the government organizations like a municipality, municipal corporation, the civil supply department for the regular water and LPG under Ujjwala scheme, which should reach the camp so that cooking can be. And water is very important in the context of Corona, because you have to wash your hands and you have to keep yourself clean. Micro planning, need assessment, identification of specific needs of special households, like where are the households with elderly people, the diabetic patient, heart patient, person with disability, excluded due to caste, religion, and gender. There are so many places where you used to get frantic calls that because in this particular basti, nobody is giving us any food because they are sanitation workers, or because of certain religious groups, or because transgender are there, they are not given any help. Preparation of audiovisual clips, messages, short films on immediate issues, very, very important. And many university students did that. Preparation of educational and recreation material was also very important. Lot of things came, PDF file or online. Using of personal vehicles for the relief goods. So many citizens and the youth, they use their two-wheelers, and four-wheelers for relief operations. And also film screenings were also happening in the camp, and there were counseling facilities also were there. Now we come to the most horrendous experience during the lockdown, which was the violence against women, which got escalated due to social isolation under the lockdown. And we saw all these pictures in last 4 months. And then the volunteer training started. I was personally involved in the volunteer training. We had some 8 sessions. We trained 400 volunteers just in city of Mumbai for how to use your time and the mobile phone to come to the rescue of a person who is facing domestic violence. What is the code language you should use? How should you connect with the different helplines created by women's organization? We also heard about a very painful episode of boys' locker room. Many of you that how the students from very elite school, they were talking about, they were uploading mock picture of their classmates in a very obnoxious and pornographic fashion. And they were also contemplating rape of the classmates, and that also created. And the boy who leaked this information, he said that there are several such boys locker rooms, and then the reality that just because there is a COVID, we can't stop our public education and gender sensitization. Ministry of Women and Child Development and MHRD they sent the circular throughout the country that gender sensitization, the kind of webinar law colleges organize, similar things should happen everywhere. And we have to make people aware about the organized trolling and fake information. What are the, how can you address cybercrime, and how to challenge the misogynist mindset, toxic masculinity, and also violent behavior. United Nations declared violence against women and the gender-based violence as a shadow pandemic, in which forced marriages took place, child sexual abuse happened 10 times more, trafficking of women and children happened, forced labor, like children were trafficked even as for a forced labor, because child labor is the cheapest labor, or people who are trafficked, you just don't pay them anything and get the work done secretly. Violence against women and children. And this bar chart shows, this is from National Commission for Women, Government of India, and which says that as compared to 2019 March, in 2020, you can see the blue bar chart where the just within 15 days of lockdown, these figures are there. And now they have come up with, the ministry says that over 1 lakh women have approached the government to rescue them. And that's why it becomes very important that we understand the pathways linking pandemics and violence against women and children. And that's why all the state and non-state actors, they have to come together to address this issue. Immediately after the lockdown, within just 1 week, Shakti Shalini, the women's rights organization in Delhi, came up with this poster. They contacted all the women's groups in India, and they took their mobile number and connected them to the police and the district authorities and the one-stop crisis center, where women, if there was a threat to their life, they could get admission in the shelter home or hospitals. Many hospitals also created this. So NGOs responding to distress call from the stranded migrants, and they did not stick only to the violence against women, but they also supported stranded migrants, students, domestic workers who were not paid. 85% of domestic workers have not received their salary from mid-March, even for the month of March, April, May, June, and July. This is the 5th month where they haven't received. All of them are dependent on the ration kit and the food donated by the NGOs and the local self-government bodies. Volunteering for the helpline was very important, responding to the distress call. TISS created iCall service. Amravati University created lifelong learning department, created the iCall service. So many animation films. Those who can't read and write, the animation films were made by School of Media Studies.
Amravati University.
Yeah, Amravati. They also created lifelong service. Helplines for the people in difficult circumstances. Immediately the NGOs like Sneha, they declared, they announced, and this is the government advertisement of Ministry of Department of Women and Child Development of Government of Maharashtra, and they made it public that these are the services available and they can be used. These services can be used for the immediate help. This thing. So most important concern now we have when it comes to the gender-based issues, that is a reduction of social inequality, to combat gender exclusion and ensure justice, equity, and dignity in gender relations while combating pandemic. So you just can't say pandemic is more important than fighting against gender differentiation. Okay, both of them have to be dealt with simultaneously. Encourage the equitable sharing of domestic tasks in explicit sum. There is one question that how can man help? No. So I think it's very important that this thing, and so the another thing is that compensation for all workers is very important. Ensure increased access to sanitation and emergency shelter space to unhoused people. Implement protocol and train authorities on recognizing and engaging vulnerable populations, particularly where the new laws are being forced. Every day, time for the curfew changes, time for the social isolation changes, the confinement zones are changing. People don't know. And you just can't use lathi, goli, beri, arresting them and beating them up mercilessly or punishing them or impounding their vehicles. That is not the way one can solve. I think public education is more important. Consultations of the government bodies with the civil society organizations are a must for implementing both legislation, whichever the new legislations have come up under the lockdown, and policy, and for guaranteeing equal access to information, public health education, and also resources. They should be available in multiple languages. Some state governments have come up with the COVID related information and advisory in the regional language, but it should happen both in the audiovisual and print media. We need a special helpline for the labor helpline, which is not only about the migration issue only, but I think it should be, first of all, it should be in the regional language, and it should also address the issues of wage denial, layoffs, termination, workplace discrimination, lot of online sexual harassment which they are experiencing currently. 12 states have abandoned all the 48 labor laws, and they are making workers work. We saw the case of young women in Bangalore in a garment industry. They were made to work for 10 to 12 hours during lockdown. They went on a strike, and there is a massive retaliation which the employers had. So I think all these things should be addressed. And there is a universal demand by the economists and by the social movements and and the NGOs that there should be income support. There should be universal income support should be given to the people in the poverty groups. So the cash transfer of only 500 rupees, which was started in the Janadhan account, and hardly 30% of people have got it. Currently, the new study that has come up is that even 2,500 under Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana has also not reached the poverty groups. So I think we need the whole structures, mechanisms to be more efficient and more socially responsible. I think that's very important. And we must understand that with limited resources, non-government organizations, community-based organizations, civil society organizations, neighborhood groups, women's rights groups, they have done a great work with courage of conviction. So I think government has 100 times more resources. So I think if there is a political will, we can do a lot. And also the Fortune 500 companies and the corporate world, I think they also need to be very, very proactive to fight the impact and the implication of the COVID virus and the lockdown, because they show so much enthusiasm when there is a marathon or when there is a IPL or a cricket match. They splurge crores and crores of rupees. Why at this time of such a big pandemic that they are not putting in all their might into addressing this issue? And these are some of the references. These are the studies done in last 4 months, which are the rapid assessment service done by NGOs, individuals, scholars, and International Labour Organization. And I have also come up with this. Bombay University launched launched a new journal called Sambhashan. The special first 2 issues, 1st May and the July issue, are both completely 100 special numbers on coronavirus, where the ground level information is being discussed. And now, thank you. Yes, I have completed. Unstop share.
Thank you, Vibhuti ma'am.
Yeah.
Dr. Jitendra here.
Yes, hello. Yeah.
Ma'am, I would like to ask you one thing. The recent news, what has happened today was the Amravati case. You must be aware about that.
Yeah.
Ma'am, do you feel it's really a part of negligence on the education system, where we can say the women are not even known from where the swab test was supposed to be taken? And today we see lots of legal experts are there in this webinar, even on YouTube and on live channel, where these lawyers are being told to take necessary cause of action by giving them legal aid awareness program across various villages and talukas.
Yes.
Do you really feel, ma'am, the thing what happened, it's a part of negligence, and what the news is showing all about? Even females should be known what was going on, and really the media and the way what the villagers were not knowing a swab test was supposed to be taken from which part of the body. Ma'am, what is your concern about all this?
Yeah, I think most important thing is a correct education, and that too in regional language, because most of the material on COVID is only in English. So I think we need to do it in this thing. And plus there are so many vested interest and people with a very, very toxic mentality and the patriarchy, they also take advantage of helpless. So whatever inequalities or discriminatory behavior we have in which is a legacy of 5,000 years of patriarchal value system. Okay, that gets exaggerated at the time of crisis, and we see the manifestation of that, and that's why our role as an educational institution and also the legal luminaries, I think their role enhances manifold. So proper education, punishment to the culprit, and those who are this kind of any kind of irregularity, I think that needs to be. And I think we need more of a audio material, because FM radio everyone listens. Doordarshan channel every villager has, because at least in Gram Panchayat or a Panchayat office there is one TV. Okay, official TV is there. So I think these are the channels which are very important, which need to be. So in the national network, national channel, official channel, as well as the FM channels, I think more and more educational material and information, advisory method, and the videos need to be shown. I think that can only address that question. And both education
Thank you
and
so much, ma'am.
also punishment to the culprit, those who are
I think so.
delinquent.
Congratulations to the team of HPPS Law College too for hosting this webinar on a similar day and time. It's a sad part of the society what happened in Maharashtra, but at the same time, Law College also decided to have a webinar on this sort of thing. So hats off the team of the college, especially Dr. Madhura Kadamkar and the team of HPPS Law College for thinking about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chitran. I
Thank
gave
you,
your-
Vibhuti madam.
I also gave the example of touts inside outside the hospitals asking for 2 lakhs rupees per bed, and this is the everywhere. So many people are just telling this.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for this wonderful session today you have given to us. Very informative and insightful information. Actually, in fact, the present situation, what we are suffering and struggling, so whatever suffered by the women's, children's, even also the challenges and consequences of the migrant workers, almost thing you have covered in our today's sessions. So I'm really grateful for having today's session with you, madam, and hope in future also you will give us such kind of things to our college and even other colleges also, the participants, principals also. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you for sharing the questions in advance, so I could cover all those questions, answer for all.
I think there are few questions still there.
Yeah,
So,
please go ahead. Yeah. Please.
Yesterday I already forwarded most of the questions, and today I tried to cover all the things.
Yeah.
Out of that, 3 questions are there with me, ma'am.
Yeah.
That first question is this: ki there is not enough awareness raising campaign on the ground for the developmental issues during COVID situation for women.
Yeah.
So how do we ensure their safety and well-being?
So I think, see, 5 developmental issues that need immediate attention. One is the public health. Okay. So public health, because women are frontline workers. Okay. Because they are the ones who look after the ill. So that is one. Second one is online education, because only 8% of Indian children have facility of smartphone. Most of them in last 4 months they have been out of school, and they have, and that's why, that's also another reason for increasing child marriages. Okay, that is there. So many of children in migrant workers whose children have gone back, they are doing scavenging, they are just collecting kachra from the cities and all. So education, top priority. Third one is telling the landowners not to evacuate people just because they are inability of paying their rent. And state has to come up with a massive program of low cost housing for the urban poor, which was there up to 1975. We had low cost housing by the government. That's why you have in Mumbai city LIG colony and this thing, although they were supported. Why were they subsidized? Because it was the state. So state has to take responsibility of a decent living place for migrant workers. And now they are saying, those who are coming back, who are brought back from their native place, no, the builders, they said they would be given. So I think that has to happen in a general. So that is a very important developmental concern. So education, health, housing. Fourth one is a safety. The kind of lawlessness that has come under the garb of, or under the cloak of lockdown. Okay, so lockdown के पूरे बड़े कुर्ते के अंदर सब जो crimes हो रहे हैं, that has to, whether it is a child trafficking or violence against women or trafficking of women. Why that tragedy in Talasari happened? Those two sadhus and one driver were killed by 400 villagers. Why? Because the villagers thought that they had come to kidnap their children. And it happens in the tribal areas, trafficking is happening in a big way. So fourth is that. And fifth one is that because of the deteriorating health, massive uh, superstition has also come up. Okay, so where the cases of killing women as witches, because these are things are not reported. It's only the groups which are working there, they are only knowing about it. So I think at every level, socio cultural, education, health, and housing, all five developmental issues have to be addressed simultaneously. You just can't say that COVID is most important, rest is not. Simultaneously, we have to fight on all five fronts. And most important thing, budgetary allocation for education, because now it's going to be online. Now all the educationists and the thinkers, now we have a new education policy cabinet has passed day before yesterday, which is talking about 30% online, 30% face-to-face teacher-student interaction, okay, and 40% to field experience. If you are going to have that kind of education system, then you have to think about making IT-enabled services, teaching learning methods accessible to the poor. Otherwise, they will be out. Whatever we have strived for 50 years in the literacy mission, they will fall back into literacy, and we will turn the wheels of history. इतिहास को हम 150 साल पीछे ले जाएंगे. That should not happen. So I think, and we have resources. It's a question of only political will. Why, if Kerala can do it, why can't? Kerala is not a rich state. Okay, rich states are Gujarat, Maharashtra, Punjab, and Haryana. Why can't we do it? If one state can do it, why can small little country like Vietnam or Cuba do it and others can't do it? So I think it's very important that now, for the first time, the role of state, both in public health and in public government aided education, becomes extremely important. And all economists are now talking about this, that it is very important. Private players are going to think of profit. It is the state which will have to take up, and it is our taxpayers' money. The way we are doing Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan for primary education, we have to do from pre-primary to PhD. Make it, state support should not go. That's right.
Okay, ma'am, my second question is that what do mean by gender? Kindly define. Who
Gender
taught us
is,
he is a male and she is a female? Is there only these two genders have
No.
right to live? What about others?
Correct.
Why so much of discrimination?
Correct.
Why people crying for women's right only?
Correct.
Is only a woman is the one who is suppressed and harassed all time? This is a question raised by
See,
one of the participants.
sex is a biological construct. Okay, you are different in terms of your sex organs and looks. But gender is a social construct. We are the ones, it's the doctor who assigns gender. Okay, when the birth certificate is given, whether this person is a man or a woman, first of all, there are no two genders. We have to go beyond gender binary. There are transgender, people are whole community like LGBTQIA, lesbian, gays, transgender, asexual, bisexual. And so we have to accept that there are a variety of human existence, and we have to accept gender diversity in our practice, not only in theory or not only in classroom lecture. And that's why during the COVID-19 also, those who suffered the most, that's what I told you, that the transgender suffered the most, because there is a prejudice, there is a social stigma. And it is the toxic patriarchy which controls not only women, it also controls all those who don't fit into the patriarchal framework. Okay. So all of them suffer. So lesbians suffer, bisexuals suffer, gays suffer, transgender suffer, or queers suffer, everyone suffers. So I think all of us are against toxic patriarchy. And I don't say that only women. When we talk about gender, we are not talking about only women. We are talking about power relations between different human beings and how to address the power. Whichever power relations are discriminatory, unjust, and differentiate human being, we have to fight against that, and we have to bring equity. Equity is creating a system, creating a facility to reach equality. Equality is a goal. Equity is creating the measures of social security, social protection, enabling environment, and that will lead us to equality. And as you started from the Gloria Steinem's quotation, that I'm waiting for a day where the word gender will not have to be used. People will be treated as human beings. That's the day.
Thank you, ma'am. And last question is this, ma'am, that COVID-19 has profoundly different outcomes for men and women in India,
Yeah.
and not just in terms of their health,
Yeah.
but in terms of domestic violence to
Correct.
sexual assault in
Yeah.
COVID care centers.
That's why I had this question you had given me in early, and that's why there are 5 slides on domestic violence and this thing. So yes, because what happens that COVID-19 and because of the social isolation, anytime you are alone, you must be seeing that any crime, any elderly person is alone, you would see that person will be attacked by the vested interest. When you don't have social cohesion, when you are not part of the larger support system, you become more prone to violence when you are weak. Okay, and that's what is happening under coronavirus. It's the social isolation, as my slide showed, that it is the social isolation which is creating, because even when you know that you want to run away from violent situation, you can't. Lockdown will not allow you there. Even when you make a call to 1091 police helpline, they will not come because they are busy with the corona work. Okay, so criminal justice system, neighborhood system, NGOs, all of them are volunteers. They all are prevented because of the lockdown. And that has created major, like in a city of Mexico, in 1 month, 80 women were murdered by their intimate partners, whether they were husband or boyfriend or they were into living relation. And this would, generally it doesn't happen. When someone comes to kill you, you run away or you seek the help, you cry for help. People come to you and they protect you. Some people would mediate. Here, the mediation has not happened because of the lockdown. And people are, and that's why you guys, the kind of horror stories, and plus the tormentors are also under stress. They have lost their job, they have lost their business. Many of them have become alcoholics, just sitting. It's claustrophobic to be in the same place and seeing same people day in and day out. And in case of women, they punish themselves. They become masochist because those who are weak, they punish themselves. But those who think that they have a power over others, they become violent. And that's what is happening.
And one more question is from student that how do we get the equality in place? We have to do away with the patriarchal thought
Correct.
process of the society.
I fully endorse what you say, that we can achieve equality only when we give up the whole ideology of male domination and female subordination. And this can be done at 3 levels. It can be done because of the conscious person like you. We had Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Jyotiba Phule. They also fought. Even 100 years back, 150 years back, they fought for the women's liberation. So that is very important. Pressure from conscious citizens like you and me. Second one is that creating a enabling environment, right to education, right to health, equal 30% reservation for women in engineering colleges in Maharashtra. When 1991, government of Maharashtra said, there was so much of anger against that. How can engineering college, only man should be there? And now you see Maharashtra is the highest number of women engineers. So that with one stroke of pen, government of Maharashtra changed the scenario of engineering colleges. Same thing, with one stroke of pen, India changed the scenario in the local self-government bodies. Now we have 18 states in India where 50% elected representatives are women. In states like Maharashtra, you have dozens of panchayats totally managed by women, 100% women. That means they are there on reserved seats and they are also there on open seats, because these women in Gram Sabha, in district panchayat, they don't drink alcohol in the meeting. They don't allow trafficking of children. They don't ask for kombdi and bakri for doing any work. They are not, they lead a transparent life. The way they nurture their family, they are nurturing the constituency. So we have seen, and globally also currently you see the states, countries which are managed by women prime ministers all over the world, whether they are in Scandinavia or New Zealand or Europe. You see even the currently who is the heroine, Prime Minister of Germany, okay, Merkel. So all these women, they have managed the crisis with human face. They have not used the crisis to amass political mileage or money. Okay, they have used their power for distributive justice, gender justice and social justice. So I think it's very important that giving the equal opportunity, equal rewards, and equal treatment to all genders. I won't say only men and women, even transgender, everybody, or they should get this thing. And the third thing will be policies from above, like coming up with the ordinance. Okay, we have an ordinance on child sexual abuse. Women's groups were fighting for 50 years to get for the state to accept that child sexual abuse takes place. I remember myself going to with their Apte, going to who was a TV announcer in Batamya. And we had approached, she had prepared a beautiful book, pictorial book on safe touch and unsafe touch. Okay. And we had met the commissioner of Mumbai. What answer did we get? Ma'am, your priorities are wrong. If we teach such things to our children will lose innocence. That was the reply of commissioner. Okay. Children have already lost innocence because they day in and day out child sexual abuse happens. After Nirbhaya, the agitation after Nirbhaya tragedy, we got three important laws: Protection of Women from Sexual Harassment Act, Child POCSO, Protection of Children from Sexual Offense Ordinance, and we also got changes in the Indian Evidence Act. Okay, so they came from top, and they have become very important. Currently, every day, anytime a child is being abused or this thing, nobody laughs at them. I remember going to police stations during 80s and 90s. Police officer, when I go with the child survivor of molestation, police would laugh at me. They go, "Madam, kya, you are a professor and you are doing this. We have an important case of drug trafficking. I have no time for this thing. Does this child know the definition of rape?" And they would all laugh as a joke. Now it doesn't happen. Now they have to file FIR, they have to take action, immediate arrest, and they also have to give compensation under the Manodaya scheme. So I think at all three levels we will have to. And only thing, women's issue can't wait. Women's issue cannot be postponed. The immediacy of women's question and the gender question is very important. So gender issues have to be taken up now and immediately at all three levels: citizens level, legislative and supportive social security, social protection, and also some of the ordinances from top. So at all three levels, we will have to exert, and that's why this kind of dialogues and webinars become very important.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me opportunity.
Yeah, for clearing every concept of this present situation of COVID-19.
No, and you are also so systematic, no? Sending the questions in advance, keeping in touch with me. So that made it a very efficient use of time we could do. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Taisha, madam?
Yes,
Taisha, madam. Yeah, please give the vote of thanks.
Yes. I'm Mrs. Saisha Gusarkar on behalf of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti College of Law. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks to our esteemed guest speaker for the day, Dr. Vidhuti Patel, ma'am. It was indeed a great privilege to have you, ma'am, here with us. I'm sure that every listener here feels enlightened by your extreme vast knowledge and exposure given to us on today's topic, that is gender bias and stereotyping, gender equality and women's rights on ongoing COVID-19. We thank you, ma'am, for having spared your precious time with us during this lockdown. I would like to thank our supportive management, Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti, for giving us this platform to host this webinar. Thank you to our Honorable Secretary, Dr. Rajan Sir, Director, Dr. Mrs. Usha Mukundan, ma'am, and I would like to express my profound gratitude to the webinar convener, Dr. Mrs. Madhura Kalamkar, ma'am, because of her tireless effort and effective leadership, this webinar wouldn't have been possible. So thank you, Devi Prasad Shetty, sir, for hosting us on this platform. All my colleagues, our entire technical and support team. From the participants, I would like to thank various principals present here from different colleges, various advocates, resource persons, all teachers, and my dear students for being a wonderful audience and make the event a success, with which we have reached to the end of the session. The feedback link has been sent in the chat box. Kindly fill the feedback link and answer the question. You will receive the certificates within 4 to 5 days. Thank you so much.
Greta madam, we can end
Yeah.
the session.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Usha Mukundan. Thank you, Dr. Madhura.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.